August 1990, 5 college students, one killer with a screwdriver and a twisted need for attention. By the time it was over, Hollywood had found its next big horror inspiration, and Ghostface was born from real blood. The mask, the phone calls, the college setting, none of it was coincidence. And the real story, it's somehow even more chilling than the movie. Today we're diving deep into the dark origins of Scream's ghost-faced killer. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never watch Scream the same way again. Make sure to hit that subscribe button because we're about to uncover some seriously disturbing connections that Hollywood tried to keep quiet. When Kevin Williamson sat down to write the script in 1994, he wasn't just creating another slasher film. He was deconstructing the entire genre. But here's what most people don't know. Williamson didn't pull his inspiration from other movies. He pulled it from the evening news. Picture this. It's 1994, and Williamson is channel surfing late at night when he stumbles across a documentary about a series of brutal murders that had terrorized a college town just 4 years earlier. As he watched the coverage of students barricading themselves in dorm rooms, of a killer who stalked his victims before striking, of a community paralyzed by fear, something clicked. This wasn't just a news story. This was the perfect horror movie. What made the real case so terrifying? 3 key elements that would become Scream's DNA. First, the victims were young college students. Relatable, sympathetic, with their whole lives ahead of them. Second, the killer didn't just murder, he psychologically tormented his victims first. And third, the attacks happened in what should have been safe places, their own homes. Sound familiar? That's because these exact elements became the blueprint for Ghostface. Now let me introduce you to Danny Rolling, though you might know him better as the Gainesville Ripper. And trust me, this guy makes Ghostface look like an amateur. In August of 1990, Rolling descended on Gainesville, Florida, home to the University of Florida. But unlike the fictional Woodsboro, this was real, and the terror was about to begin. Here's where it gets chilling. Rolling didn't just randomly select victims, he stalked them. He watched their routines, learned their habits, and chose his moments carefully. Just like Ghostface, he turned hunting into an art form. His first victims were roommates Sonia, Larson, and Christina Powell. It was their very first day on campus. They just met each other and were excited about starting college. That night, Rolling broke into their apartment using a screwdriver to jimmy the back door. The details of what happened next are too graphic for this video, but I'll say this. Rolling didn't just kill them. He posed their bodies in disturbing ways, turning murder into a twisted performance. But here's the part that directly inspired Scream. Rolling would often call his victims or their families, taunting them before or after his attacks. Sound familiar? Those iconic Ghostface phone calls? They came straight from Rolling's playbook. The next victim was Krista Hoyt, an 18-year-old who worked for the local police. When she didn't show up for work, officers went to check on her. What they found was so disturbing that it traumatized seasoned law enforcement. Rolling had decapitated her and positioned her head on a bookshelf facing the door, ensuring maximum psychological impact on whoever found her. By now, the University of Florida campus was in complete panic. Students were fleeing town, parents were driving hours to collect their children, and those who stayed were barricading themselves in their rooms. Here's an interesting detail that will give you chills. Students started sleeping in groups, just like the characters in Scream. They'd push furniture against doors, take turns staying awake to keep watch, and some even slept with weapons nearby. Rolling's final victims were Tracy Pauls and Manuel Taboada. Tracy had actually called friends earlier that day, saying she was scared and hoped her roommate Manny would get home soon. There's even a recording of this call, her voice shaking with fear, talking about how she didn't feel safe alone. When Manny did come home, he walked straight into Rolling's trap. There was a struggle. Manny fought back hard, but Rolling overpowered him. Tracy tried to escape upstairs and locked herself in the bathroom, but Rolling found her. The most disturbing parallel to Scream, Rolling brought his own tools, duct tape, knives, and that screwdriver. He was prepared, methodical, and he cleaned up after himself. Just like Ghostface, he wasn't some crazed killer acting on impulse. He was organized, calculating, and terrifyingly efficient. Now here's where the story gets even more twisted. The police initially focused on the wrong suspect, a student named Ed Humphrey who had facial scars and mental health issues. He looked like what people expected a killer to look like, so he became the prime suspect. This wrongful accusation directly inspired Scream's red herring approach, where multiple characters seemed suspicious, keeping audiences guessing about the real killer's identity. Rolling wasn't caught because of the murders. He was arrested for a completely unrelated bank robbery. It was only during questioning that investigators began connecting him to the Gainesville killings. And here's the most chilling detail of all. Rolling had been living in the woods near campus in a tent. For days, while students were terrified and parents were panicking, he was literally camping out next to the university, probably watching the chaos he'd created. When they searched his campsite, they found evidence linking him to not just the Gainesville murders, but to a triple homicide in Shreveport, Louisiana, his hometown. Rolling had killed a family there just months before coming to Gainesville, including an 8-year-old child. So how did this real-life nightmare become Ghostface? Kevin Williamson had been very open about this connection. He was watching a documentary about Rolling's crimes when inspiration struck. The key elements he borrowed: college-aged victims in a small-town setting, a killer who stalked victims before attacking, the psychological torture through phone calls, break-ins through back doors and windows, the killer's ability to blend into the community. But Williamson made one crucial change. He turned one killer into potentially anyone. While Rolling was a drifter, an outsider, Ghostface could be your friend, your boyfriend, even your family member. This made the horror more personal, more paranoid. The phone calls were directly inspired by Rolling's tactics. In real life, Rolling would sometimes call victims' families after the murders, taunting them. Williamson took this concept and made it the centerpiece of Ghostface's methodology. Even the mask choice has connections to the real case. Williamson wanted something that was both terrifying and anonymous, something that could hide the killer's identity completely. The Ghostface mask achieved this while also creating an iconic look that would become synonymous with modern horror. Rolling was eventually executed in 2006, but his impact on popular culture lives on through Scream. The franchise had made over $600 million worldwide, spawned countless imitators, and revitalized the horror genre in the 1990s. But here's what's really disturbing. Rolling's crimes didn't just inspire one movie. They influenced an entire generation of horror films. The college slasher subgenre, the emphasis on psychological terror over just gore, the idea of killers who taunt their victims. All of this can be traced back to those terrifying days in Gainesville. The real victims, Sonia Larson, Christina Powell, Krista Hoyt, Tracy Pauls, and Manuel Tapawada, became the unwitting inspiration for countless fictional characters. Their real terror, their real deaths, became entertainment. This raises an important question. Is it ethical to turn real-life tragedy into entertainment? Williamson has always maintained that he was inspired by the case, not exploiting it. He changed names, locations, and many details to create something new rather than simply retelling Rolling's story. But the families of the victims have had mixed reactions. Some appreciate that their loved ones' stories lent something that brings awareness to violence against young people. Others feel that their tragedy was commercialized for profit. What's undeniable is that Scream's success brought renewed attention to the Gainesville murders, ensuring that Rolling's victims wouldn't be forgotten. In a strange way, their deaths led to a cultural phenomenon that continues to influence horror movies today. So the next time you watch Scream, remember, those phone calls, the stalking behavior, the college setting, the psychological terror, it all came from a real nightmare that played out in Gainesville, Florida in 1990. Danny Rolling may be gone, but his influence on horror cinema lives on through Ghostface. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying stories aren't born from imagination, they're ripped straight from the headlines. What do you think? Should real-life crimes inspire fictional entertainment, or is there a line that shouldn't be crossed? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the dark origins of your favorite horror movies.